Hi guys, in this tutorial series we are going to talk about how we can do this special functionality for uploading and displaying files, and I'm going to use Django Rest as a backend, and as a frontend I'm going to use Angular framework. So let's start with these first steps when creating a new project, like setting a virtual environment and checking the configurations and adding a GitHub repo and so on. So let's start. First thing first, I'm going to choose a location for my new project, and let's say that I'm going to do that in projects, and let's say that I'm going to do that for books project. Okay, and here I'm going to create two folders. So the first folder will be FE, which stands for front end, and the second one will be BE, as you can imagine, because it is going to stand for backend. Of course, you can change that. So the first thing here is to open our command prompt, and we should create here a virtual environment. It is very special thing to do when working with Python, because here you, as you can see, we have this functionality for adding new packages without clashing with our other projects. Okay. So now the first thing, I'm using Windows, by the way, Windows 10. So maybe if you're using Linux or Mac OS, you're going to see that here the commands will be different. So the pre-requirements here are to have Python. I'm going to use Python 3, so I'm recommending you to use that. So especially I'm going to show you my version of Python just to check. Okay, so right now, if I want to create a virtual environment in Windows, I have to write python -m venv, and I have to paste here the location of the folder when I want to my virtual environment to be created. Okay, so right now I'm going to go to backend, copy the location, go to my command prompt, and I will press enter. So now we're waiting. You can, by the way, see here that we have already a bunch of stuff. Well, don't bother for now what all of these things mean, but just go to script, so say this script, and here you have to write activate. When you do that, you see that here you have your name of the folder where the venv is created, like this in parentheses, and that means you have activated your virtual environment. It's very common mistake to create, let's say, a virtual environment. After that, you turn off your laptop, and in a couple of hours you go back for, I don't know, continue working on your project. And when you're new, there's a common mistake just to forget to turn on to activate your virtual environment, and a bunch of errors appear. So first thing first, when you get errors when you try to run your server, just check if there is activation on your virtual environment. Okay, so second step here is to install Django, where you can find your hints how to do that. So in Django, when you say Django start project, here let's say, it's going to show you a link to a Django tutorial, which is very beautiful, by the way, but it's for Django. If you want to use Django Rest, as we're going to do so, I recommend you first to go through the documentation and the tutorial for Django, and after that introducing yourself to Django Rest. So here, as you can see, we have to install first our Django, and after that we can use it. So if we go here, we will see that we have steps recommended for installation of Django. So I'm going to go for official release, and I'm going to do this. So pip install Django. Okay, so after installing Django, you should go back and say Django admin, which is the command for creating a new project. Django admin, start project, it is together. Start project, let's say store. Okay, it will be a store. And as you can see here, we have this folder named store. If we enter, we will see manage py and this store where are all of the settings in it.py. As you can see, URLs and a bunch of things I'm going to explain you later. So when we have this, we have to enter in our new folder, which is store, and use this manage.py, and we can say python manage.py startup, which will be books, let's say. And now I'm going to open this project in my PyCharm. Okay, so now I have these folders here: books, which is the main, and books, which is the application, and the store, which I'm going to show you how we can do some magic in settings and everything, and URL, and everything will be just perfect. So as we have these books right here, we have to do something very special here, and this is to create our database. Django comes with this SQLite DB, which is very comfortable if you're trying to develop your own small project, or just for testing purposes, or even a real project which is just very small or medium, not large, because this database is not good for large projects. So here we're going to say that we need to do a bunch of commands like python manage.py again, and we have to say make migrations. As you can see, it is going to say that there are no changes detected, but when you want to migrate, you will see that here we have a lot of things that are done for us, although we haven't done any models yet. So as you can see here, we have this from Django, like authentication, permissions, validations, and so on. This is because Django comes with this built-in user. We have to say python manage.py serve. When we do that, it's going to say that it is hosted in our machine. And if we try, okay, so now we have the starting page, which is saying to us that everything works correctly and we're good to go further. So the first step here is to create our model, and let's say that we want to create a model for our book. So here we have to define a class which will be called book, and it will inherit models.model. Here, for simplicity, I'm going to say that my book just have a title, okay, and we're going to say that in models we will use char field. Here is obligatory to say max length of the char field, so I'm going to say that it is 255, and I'm going to say an auto, which will be again the same. And the other thing here will be our book PDF. So in our site we're going to have this functionality, a user that can create a book and upload the PDF file for the book, and after that another user can read the book. Okay, so the first step is to create a model that could hold PDFs. So here we're going to use from models file field. Okay, let's say for simplicity that book PDF file is not going to be obligatory. So how can I do that? Well, I can say that null is true and blank is true. For the first step, I want to override this to string method and return a string which will be the title of the book. So I'm going to say self.title. After that, I'm going to ask for self.auto, and at the end I'm going to ask for self.pdf, book PDF. Okay, And now I'm going to show you how you can use that. So first thing first is to register this book in the admins.py. That will help you to see this in admin panel. If I duplicate this and say /admin, you'll see here that I have to enter username or password, but right now I'm not having any users in my database, and I'm going to show you in a minute how you can create your super user that is allowed to enter in this panel and make changes to the database from here. Okay, so the first thing here is to say admin.site.register, which will be with the books. But where can I find this book? Well, I have to import it, let's say from here, models, import book as book model. Okay, so I'll use this nickname here and put it to the register. Okay, so now I have registered my book model, but let me show you how you can create a super user. It's very easy. So you have to say Python manage py create super user, and it will ask you a bunch of things. So first thing first is to say your username. I'm going to use my name Ines. I'm not going to enter email. The password will be very easy because I just want to use this for demo purposes. Yes, here I'm sure that the password is very common and short. So I'm going to try again the run server command and try to enter the admin panel. So I will say ins123. Okay, so as you can see here, we see only these groups and users. That is because we haven't told our database that are changes to our application. So here is the tricky part. If you try to migrate, let's say make migrations, it will say that there are no changes detected. And why so? Well, because as you can see here, we have this application, but no one has told our Django project that we want to use this application in our project. Yeah, I know it's a little bit confusing because this is obviously an application which is a part of our project, but we have to register it before we can use it. So I'm going to say settings, and in settings, as you can see here, we have this array called installed apps, and here I can add my books, just the name of the application. So right now, if you try this again, you will see that the migration are available now. So we have this created model called book, and we have to migrate this in order to use this model. So I say migrate. It says that everything's okay right now, okay, and I have to start my server again. And when I do that, you will see that here in our admin panel I have books. Okay, so that was very easy. If I want to create a book, I can use this panel, admin panel, and say add book. And as you can see here, I have to say, okay, Blue Ocean Strategy, which is a very cool book, and the author will be, let me check that. I'm going to choose this author. I say so. I'm going to choose this file, but first I have to download this. So I'm going to use this folder, okay, and here in my Django I'm going to add this PDF folder and download. Okay, this was the folder. So when I hit save, as you can see here, I rewrite the toString method so it displays the name of the book, so self.title, self.author, and self.pdf. Where the self.pdf is displayed as the name of the folder. Okay, so right now we have a book. But here we're starting the fun part. Because we want our project to be REST, we can go and check how we can do that. So if we say Django Rest, you will see you will see here that we have a bunch of things how we can start with it. So the installation process, as you can see here, have a lot of things. Because I'm considering to make another tutorial series when I'm showing you guys how to filter or how to make, let's say, authentication and so on and so on, I want to install all of these things. But when you're doing your own project, make a research which one would be useful for you. So I'm sure that the virtual environment is activated, so I say pip install Django framework, REST framework. Yes, I want this markdown, and let's say that I want to filter that for future purposes. Okay, so I'm installing all of that, and as you can see here, again, we have this thing that although we have installed something or create something in our project, that doesn't mean it is going to be used by Django if we do not say so. So again, in installed apps, we have to say REST framework. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to go to installed apps, and I'm going to say REST framework. By the way, a good convention in this arrays here, string arrays, is to put at the end of every row, doesn't mean if there is another value after that or not, a comma. Because if you forget this comma, and let's say you have to install something else here, and you haven't put this comma, you end up with this string concatenation. But I'm going to make another tutorial series for that, so I'm going to remove that. Okay, just remember to put the comma after every value. When we run the server, and when we go back to our project, and when we refresh that, you'll see that nothing has changed. But that's okay, because we haven't configured any URLs right now. And how we can do that? So I'm going to show you how you can do that either with Django REST or just Django projects. So we're going to say URLs. Okay? As you can see here, we have a very useful URL patterns array which shows us that we have to configure some routes. So by default, we have this admin route which leads us to admin page. If we do that, and of course go with that, we see that we have admin and path. But here we have to add this include function, and if you start typing, you will see that from URLs you can use this include function. Include function helps us to set a path. Let's say that if we say books, if we say here books, and again at the end we have to have this slash, and after that we will say include, and here we have to say what we have to include in string. So I have to create a new file which is called URLs, and in this file URLs, a Python file, I have to set up these URL patterns, as you can see. So if I copy that and bring it here, I am not going to need this admin file, so I'm just going to use path, and here I have to configure. Okay, so right now from the main URLs, if I hit books slash, it's going to lead me to my application, which is books.urls, and it has to check if there is a match for the URL. So here I'm going to say just an empty string, okay, because if I hit books slash, I have to go to my books application, and right now here as a second argument I have to put the view I want to be executed, in other words the controller, what will happen if we hit this URL. So the first thing first, I'm going to go to views, okay, and here I'm going to say that I'm going to have a class which will be book, okay, and here I have to inherit an API view. It is going to be very useful if I do that, because if I inherit an API view, I can, let's say, use all of the functionality for get and post function, and I do not have to check if the request is get, and if it is get request you should do that, if it is post request you should do that, and so on. And let me show you. I have to inherit an API view here, but where should I find this API view? If you go to this Django Rest framework, you can see here a quick example, I believe, that will show you that you can inherit this from this framework. Okay, let's say quick start. We have example, let's say. Okay, so now we have serializers, which is a very powerful thing for Django Rest framework, but I'm going to show you in a minute how you can do that with the serializer. You can see here that we have function-based views, but we haven't and class-based views. So here is the API view, and I have to import it from restframework.views API view. If I do that, this import, you will see here that API view is cool right now. And here I have to, let's say, define this get function. Okay, and this get function, as you can see here by example, could take a lot of parameters. It could take self, it should take request, and maybe a format, but it is not obligatory. So I'm going to say self and request. Okay, that's all I need. So right now I'm going to say pass, and I'm going to return in a minute to write my logic, but I'm going to return to the views and say that I want to import from here, import views. And here I have to say that when I hit this book/URL, I have to go to views.book. But because it is a class and I have to present it as a function, I have to say as view. And here I can say optional the name, but I'm not going to do that. So I have views books as view. And if I go to views, let's say that I'm going to return a response, which will be but as you can see here, if I want to return here a response, this is a part of the Django Rest framework. If I want to return a response like not REST framework, but just normal response, I have to use the built-in Django HTTP response. But right now I'm going to use REST, so I'm going to show you the response. As you can see here, I have again this return response and some data in it. So I have to import that from here, and all of these things you should refer in the Django Rest framework. And if I go and say, okay, import this, I'm going to delete these rows because they are not used. You see that response is cool. So I'm going to say something like message, and let's say okay. I'm going to show you how you can add status to these responses and so on, but in a minute. Right now I have to test if it is working or not. So if I do a refresh right now, you will see something like an error, but it's not an error. Always read what a project tells you. So it tells page not found. Why? If you look closer, you will see here that we have two routes, okay, admin and books. And right now, because we have set up a new route, a new URL, that means for Django that we're starting to create our new project. And this welcome and startup page is not required anymore. So we have to say, let's say books, and if you hit this URL, see how this slash is implemented at the end. Okay, very important. So if you see that this nice looking field comes from this API view, because as you remember, we inherit API view here, and if we do get request, this API view, this view comes from API view, and this is our response. Okay guys, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to check my website and to subscribe to my channel in order to get more interesting videos and how data structure in Python works, or algorithms and so on. So thank you so much again for watching, and in the next part we're going to implement this GET request to return our data from the database.